Welcome to Straight Out of Savannah, Talking with Tammi, a podcast that showcases people you may not know who are choosing to use their gifts to inspire and move the planet.
Are you in a spiritual awakening? Yeah, I'm talking to you right now. You've been stuck in religion for all of your life, and all of a sudden now you realize that God is so much bigger than what you were taught. And now your gifts are opening up and you start feeling like you're losing your mind, possibly. If that's you, reach out to me and let's do a session. Matter of fact, I do mentoring for people leaving religion, entering spirituality. And especially if you are in a spiritual awakening, your gifts are opening, you don't understand what's happening, reach out to me. Send me a message right here on this platform. Thank you so much. Bye. Thank you so much for joining us on Straight Out of Savannah. I am super excited to be here today. Today's guest is Safrianna Lughna, and she is going to tell you who she is and what it is that she does. And then we're going to take it from there. So Safrianna, take it away.
Thank you so much, Tammi. I'm so appreciative of being on here today. And I'm Safrianna Lughna. I'm also known as the Queer Spirit Guide. And I have co-founded a brand called Living Luna. And we are all about uplifting the others of the world. So we are just trying to shine our light and do our stuff out there publicly, openly, showing that it is okay to be different, that we can celebrate our differences and come together in community. And I offer retreats, rituals, and other such experiences to help people drop more deeply into themselves so they can live in that authenticity.
Oh, wow. That's an amazing, I'm going to say gift.
Thank you.
Because, we don't have a lot of people out here being their authentic self in this community. Because I know as being a spiritual entrepreneur, it's like so many things are taboo. And then we have to overcome so many things in order to get to the place where we are. And so I want to kind of start there. What brought you into this particular area? And where did you come from?
Yeah. So I grew up in upstate New York as the sort of odd girl out. I was the black sheep right away in my family and my friend system. I grew up with this sense of connection to the world and this belief that everyone was equal. And I remember one of the first examples of that was a black girl moved into the school district. A black family moved into the neighborhood. Only black family anywhere in upstate pasty white New York. I'm sure in the city it's very different, but I'm talking like I grew up in the country of New York, like cow pie.
Oh, gotcha. So right.
No one had ever seen no one in my elementary school had ever seen a person with skin darker than mine before, because I was a sun baby and out tanning all the time, but that's about as dark as we got. And so this family moves in and I just befriended her right away. I befriended this little girl. She looked different than me, but I didn't care. And we played baby dolls with each other and we celebrated each other. And then I moved to Maryland. Wow. And I discovered racism. And I went, what is this? Right. And then I started to realize that was getting activated in me, that those beliefs that other people were carrying around had a legacy in my own bloodline that needed to be healed.
Oh, yes.
And I still, of course, continued to befriend diverse people, but I started to have these inner issues, these inner legacies that we have in our country of things like sexism and racism and inner homophobia and any non-Christian anything phobia, right? Yes. And so I just lived in this diverse place going, this isn't okay. Everyone should be treated equally. Right. And I believe that from the time I was a child. So I wanted to figure out how in the world do I help everyone or as many people as I can, as many diverse people as I can. So I went into public school teaching and taught in Maryland middle school system for nearly a decade, one of the most diverse school systems in the area here, one of the most diverse schools. So I was working with kids from all kinds of religious backgrounds, spiritual backgrounds, you know, all shades of skin from every country around the world, like huge diversity. And I was like, okay, now I started seeing the thread of trauma that ran through all of them. So I went back to school to become a therapist. You see where I'm going with this?
Yeah, I do.
So then I went and became a therapist and became a trauma therapist and started working with diverse populations and marginalized populations, LGBTQ, people of color, BIPOC, like all of these non-Christian religions, people that have had trauma from literally all walks of life. And I still keep seeing this central thread. Oh, we're all traumatized. We're all trying to unpack the same issues and we're all equal.
Yes.
And so seeing how the medical system and the school system treats people, I couldn't do it anymore. I couldn't do it anymore. And I said, I'm unhooking from this so that I can stand out here and start speaking up on these issues.
Yes.
Because it takes ownership, right? Like it takes us owning, and I am white, right? I have to own my white privilege, and owning my white privilege allows me to also have a healthy intersection with my areas of non-privilege. Yes. And if I don't talk about both, I can't heal. So I really got into this work because I want to walk that healing out loud, and I want to have the hard conversations, and I want to say, the way the medical system is treating people is not okay. The way the school system is treating these kids and these teachers is not okay. The way the therapy world is treating its therapists is not okay.
Yep.
How we treat our spiritual healers is not okay.
Yes.
We don't view emotional and intellectual and spiritual labor the same way we do more masculine, patriarchal forms of labor.
Yes. And I can relate to all of that.
Yeah.
Because I was in the medical field for 33 years. Nurse for 30 years. And I saw how it did. And I noticed, and of course experienced too, as a woman and as a Black woman, how they treat us, you know. And I actually had a lot of that type of situations happening over the last year because I was sick. Never ever got a diagnosis. Nobody ever seemed to give a fuck about what the problem was. Right. They were actually looking at me and saying stupid stuff like, oh, we can't give you any opioids. I said, I never asked for any and I don't want any. I don't want opioids. I want to know what's wrong.
What's the underlying issue?
Right. So I can work on it because I know that, you know, in the medical system, well, they don't really give a fuck about anybody. You know, all they care about is the dollar, big pharma, and they want to push, you know, drugs on you and all that stuff. And I saw that. And I was like you. I said, I cannot do this system anymore.
Right.
Can't do it because when you're a person that are empathic and you care about people and you love people, you can't be involved in that system because it's so corrupt. I watched the video yesterday where this doctor was talking about it. And he said that he and his wife had stepped away from the death care system. And that's what he called it. He said, it's not the healthcare system, it's the death care system.
Yeah.
You know,
it
and
is.
So the education is exactly the same because I actually have a few friends that they had to leave teaching as well. Because, you know, they had a heart to do it and they wanted to help the kids and, you know, the families and all that stuff. But, you know, they tie your hands.
They do. They absolutely do. And, you know, what was coming to mind as you were saying all of that is you were also more down in this helping role, right? You were directly helping people. It's the therapists, it's the nurses, it's the ones that are literally pouring out this emotional labor, their intellectual labor, and often their spiritual and intuitive labor without realizing it.
Yes.
Really care for and connect soul to soul with other people and get to the underlying, you know, what's going on. And it's like the people making the big money who aren't caring for the people, and they're stepping on the backs of the therapists and the nurses and
the people that are caring.
Yes, that are doing the care. And so it's completely off balance. That's not how it should be in any way, shape, or form. And it's not, it continues to perpetuate. I mean, we've got the prison pipeline in the public school.
Okay, that's a whole nother thing.
That's a whole nother thing. And then, you know, the medical field, like the studies that came out that show that to this day, doctors still think Black people experience less pain than white people.
Absolutely.
What?
So when I had my babies, okay, I had two. These people let me labor for over 20 hours with both of them. And then at the end, I ended up having a C-section with both of them. And I think about that, and I actually was sitting one day with that, and I said, you know, I said, I'm grateful that I was born in this time. I said, because if I was born in like the 15, 16, 17, 1800s, I'd have died. Probably my baby would have died, you know. And I had to be grateful for that. But then the other part is, why hell you let me labor for 20 some freaking hours, you know, in the late 80s and the 90s when I had babies? You know, why?
Right.
And then have to do a C-section. And they let me labor so long with my oldest that when she came out, she was purple. Yeah, because they had to get her out. They got her out in like 10 minutes. They were like, we got to do a C-section, blah, blah, blah. Before I knew it, they whisked me in the operating room and they snatched my baby out so fast. And they took her away because she was freaking purple. So, you know, I didn't even get to hold her.
You didn't get the bonding.
Right. And so I think about that and I say, okay, you know, and then with the next baby, I told them that it happened exactly the same way. I never dilated past 5. Never got to 10, never got to 7, none of that. And so I thought, and always in my mind, I think, I never want to say, okay, so was it racism that they did me like that? You know what I mean? I try really hard not to go in that direction.
Right.
But you know, when you see it and you know it, and you're, you know, I don't know about you, I'm 54 years old. You see it and you know it, you feel it, you know it. You know, and you, even if you try to say, no, maybe it's, you know, not that, you know, but you know it.
Yeah. I mean, I see it all the time. I recently went to, I'm not going to call it a retreat. I went on a vacation, we'll call it. And there were a group of us sharing on this vacation. And it was mostly a group full of white women with a couple of maybe ambiguous ethnic background, you know, we shouldn't assume, we should not assume, but you can start to assume when you get to different skin tones that they are non-white. And there was one person in the group that was clearly non-white. She happens to be biracial, but non-white. And she was treated differently by the host. I swear to goodness. And I was like, what is happening here?
Yes.
How is this? And I just got off the call with a client.
Was it supposed to be a spiritual retreat?
It wasn't meant to be a retreat. I guess at the end of the day, long story short, it was a glorified vacation share, but that's not what we walked in thinking it was. And I walked out realizing a lot more about people in modern day and how much we need to repair than anything, which is is part of why I'm going into the work that I'm going into, because I've been a diversity and inclusion expert in various nonprofit organizations, but I mostly specialize in LGBTQIA issues because I don't feel like I have the right to speak on, you know, BIPOC experience or African American or Black experience. I can say this is how you could be a little bit less of an asshole, but I can't speak to the experience. But I'm really realizing how many spiritual entrepreneurs out there and just businesses in general don't know the basics of how to be inclusive. The basics of how to be inclusive.
Yeah.
And that's a problem.
It is a problem. And it's a big problem. And the thing is I'm usually that person in those rooms. Typically, and it's for me, it's been like that since I was young. Because I was always in the gifted classes and all this stuff. And usually sometimes just me. Sometimes it would be 2 or 3, but I was that person and I was used to it, you know, for me. But a lot of people that look like me are not used to that, but for me, I was, and I'm still that person. Sometimes there are rooms that I'm in and I'm still the only one that looks like me.
Right.
And I got to a place where I have decided that I'm not going to tolerate any type of abuse in any way. I'm going to call it out.
Yeah.
Because at times we would tolerate that type of thing just to fit in and to get along. And it has just gotten to the place where it's like, no, I'm not putting up with that.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Because if I paid my money, I'm sure I paid the same money you did, and if I took my time or if I was invited or whatever, you know what I mean? So that's a thing. So I appreciate the fact that you said that, you were in diversion and inclusivity, that word.
Yes.
You were
Inclusivity.
But you realize that, you weren't qualified to speak from that vantage point.
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of people I've noticed that, they say, oh, I'm into diversion and, inclusivity and that type of thing, but you don't really know. You know what I mean? You've seen and you've heard and you've been in rooms, whatever, but it's no way for you to really know.
Right.
And for me, I have some friends I had to share with them. I said, you got privilege, and they didn't think they did because, they came from a poor family and all this kind of stuff. I said, it doesn't have anything to do with that.
Right.
I said, you have privilege because you can walk in rooms that easily that I might have to fight to get into.
Yep. Exactly.
And this person was like, no, but I feel like, this and that and third. And I said, no, I said, you got to look at it like this. I said, because this is what society sees. It has nothing to do with, whether I'm smarter than you or any of that kind of stuff. Whether I have more education or whatever. I said, it just has to do with, surface stuff, the color of one's skin, which is so, idiotic.
It really, and I mean, like when I think of those studies that say doctors think people with a darker skin tone can experience less pain, I'm like, but the same organs and the same brain and the same
blood,
everything else, it's literally just the skin tone. I mean, and obviously like genetics, but like the inner working is still the same. And like it just boggles my mind. And that is so important. Like I talk a lot about intersectionality, and intersectionality comes from Black feminism, right? Black feminism stemmed into intersectional feminism. And
go into that a little bit, because I know people don't really know what that is.
Right. Well, if you picture a line, and above the line is privilege and below the line is non-privilege.
Okay.
Right. White is above the line. Male is above the line. High socioeconomic status is above the line. Christian above the line. Below the line is things like non-white. So BIPOC, any kind of racial diversity at all.
Right.
Below the line. Female, born female, assigned female at birth, below the line. Feminine presenting, below the line.
Yes.
LGBTQ, below the line. Poverty status, below the line. So when we get into intersectionality, we start to recognize most people probably have at least one on the privilege scale.
Mm-hmm.
But not everybody does. Some people are literally like, they're just, have physical or mental disabilities, have a darker skin tone, are assigned female at birth, queer, those people exist. So there's no privilege status for them to reach.
Right. The trans people, oh my God. The trans
community is so under fire right now. And that is one that I do speak a lot on, because I'm a member of the community and I have my own gender journey that I can speak to. But intersectionality is important because when we can acknowledge it's ownership, right? I'm owning that I have my white privilege. And so I, as a person who is consciously using that knowledge, can leverage my white privilege to try and help everyone else below the line. Even though there are like 90% of me is below that line, there's still 10% that isn't. And it happens to be the very visible form, right?
Okay,
like
so
the color of our skin.
Yeah.
So yes, like if you and I went and pitched ourselves to do a diversity and inclusion talk to a big corporation, well, statistically speaking, I'm probably more likely to get the job. And that is really screwed up.
It's sad is what it is.
Yes. And I remember so my name, Safrianna, is a name I chose for myself. And
beautiful.
thank you. I renamed myself and stepped into my authentic identity in my mid-20s. And I remember, thank you. I remember someone saying to me, "You're going to have a hard time getting a job now because your name looks ethnic." And I said, "Excuse me, if a job disqualifies me because they are assuming that I am quote unquote ethnic, I don't want to work for them anyway. So they can fuck right off, because we shouldn't be judging people on these surface things like names and skin color.
But we
at all.
do.
But we do all the flipping time."
Okay, so speaking to that, I named my children like that because I thought of that.
Yeah. And
like
the fact that you
my,
have to
my
think about
son's
that.
name is Dylan. And he's a pretty brown boy.
And I'm sure he's a wonderful Dylan.
He is. My daughter's name is Sydney because I said I need to make sure that when they see their name on applications that they're not automatically biased.
Yes.
My son
And that automatic.
His name, all of his names is like, they don't know what to expect when he walks in the door. And when he walked in the door, when he was a little boy, I noticed it. I saw it. I was like, okay. They didn't know what to expect. And that was how I thought, because I thought if I named them something, that sounded ethnic, then that was already going to be a strike against them,
Right.
like a disqualifier. And I didn't want that. And so oh my gosh, that's huge.
And it's so problematic because, and I really like to talk about this because I think it needs to be talked about, and there are not a lot of white people out there talking about it. Is like, we have this legacy. I love the book My Grandmother's Hands, really powerful in dismantling white supremacy and especially police brutality as it relates to brown and black bodies in the world. And I literally, like I said, I grew up in upstate New York where there was no diversity. Someone diverse moved in. I didn't think anything of it because I've never been exposed. To my direct bloodline's credit, they have not been openly racist that I have ever seen. My mom, her best friend is black, amazing poet. Like, we were surrounded even when I was a teen by diverse people. But when I moved to Maryland, I started to hear and I started to see the exclusion. And so that gene, right, that legacy that's been passed down activated in me. And I started to think very not good things.
Mm-hmm.
And if I can't talk about that and own that, then I can never, ever, ever truly heal it. Yes, because if we ignore it, we're not healing it.
No.
So I started to have conversations about this. I started to call out when I would have an instantaneous racist bias thought or a fear response or a whatever, and say, I'm having this response and I'm calling it out because I'm not going to be ashamed of it, because this is a legacy.
Yeah.
But I need to own it to heal it and speak on it so other people can also own it and stop doing the damn damage in the world that they are.
Yes, and take it out of our bloodlines.
Yes.
Because
heal
that's the thing. People don't know, they don't realize these things transfer in our cells, in our nervous systems, in our DNA. And it's like, oh my God. Yes. And then when you see it, it's like, okay, I got to do something about this.
Yes.
Especially if you are progressive.
Yeah. And I work with internal family system / parts work as prior trauma therapist and now as a coach. And it's a spiritual belief that we all are, we all have multiplicity of parts. We all have a core self that is sovereign and completely capable of handling anything. But we need to learn that from our parents. And most of our parents weren't equipped with that energy. So our parts, which were inherent to us, our creative parts, our loving parts, our compassionate parts, get wounded out in the world, and then they become disharmonized and they shut down. And so I really work on bringing those parts that still have those damaged beliefs, those wounded, traumatized beliefs. And that's where it all comes. This all comes from trauma, right? And that's, I don't think there's any be all end all bad guy other than trauma, which has been perpetuated for generations and generations. Right. We have to literally go in and retrieve these parts that have been wounded and bring them to the present time and give them a system update and give them some love and give them some self-awareness so they can catch up and heal. And we have 4 legacy burdens in the United States, which is racism, sexism, individualism, and consumerism. And you can see all of us are dealing with those 4 big energies in this culture that we have to unpack.
Yes.
Because it's everywhere.
It's everywhere. Really is. And you can't even get away from it.
You can't.
It's like,
you literally can't.
Yeah. And because I know different parts of the country. I'm from Georgia originally. And I grew up in busing. So we were bused like an hour away from home.
Wow.
Yeah. I remember that so clearly. I was in the 1st grade. Yeah. So I can relate to all of that. It's like, okay, I remember that.
Yeah.
And I remember the first experience that I had with racism, which was really funny because it was a girl that she and I were friends. And she was a little white girl, and she we were on the playground and she called me a nigger. Well, I had never been called that before at 5 years old or whatever, but I knew that it wasn't a good thing. I knew the word. So I slapped the piss out of her.
That is certainly one way to handle it.
I mean, yeah, but it was crazy because we were friends.
Yeah.
And what I realized later was that it was just a word that she heard her family use.
Yep.
And she, because we were friends, and they tried to suspend me. But my mother went down there with her little afro and she said, no, are you going to suspend the other girl? Because my child, wouldn't do that unprovoked.
Mm-hmm.
And that wasn't right what she said. My mother, she of course threatened to call the school board lady that they knew well. And mom threw her name out there and she was like, I'll just call, the lady and, we could just handle that. And the principal was like, no. But
of course.
Something how it had to even get to that point,
Mm-hmm.
And I remember that thing so clearly. I don't remember a lot of my childhood, but I remember that, which is crazy, right? But anyway, let's get into how you started doing this the body work that we were talking about in the green room, because that's huge, and I know that actually probably integrates into this.
Yes, it does. Because so we were talking about, for those of you listening, we were having a great conversation. I'm so sad we weren't recording it because it was just lovely, but we're just going to have to keep talking, I guess, about something that I've been studying for the last year. And I study with a group called Body of 9. And it is this understanding that here on planet Earth, there are 9 different types of bodies. And this is across culture, across race, across gender, does not matter. We have 9 types of bodies that, for whatever reason, why 9? Why is this the way it is? I have no idea. I wish I had the answers, but the proof is so there once you see it. There are 9 types of people. 1 through 4 love eye contact, and they make connections through eye contact of a very specific type. 5s through 9, they are more activity-based in how they connect with others. And their eyes are used more for observation than they are for connection. And just knowing that alone, being able to know, if I walk into a room with someone now, I'm a natural number 9, and I know they're a natural number one, I know I need to honor that person with a lot of respect and dignity, not get anywhere near criticism or feedback, but a lot of positive reinforcement. And they really need soft, gentle eye contact from me.
Okay.
And they will benefit from me lifting my chin to look at them, because natural number one is here in the throat.
Oh.
And so the kind of eye contact that ones make is soft and receptive and vulnerable, so vulnerable. And they have this deep connection to source immediately. So again, I know that about one just by studying the system briefly, right? I love Body of Nine because it's like a shortcut versus, let's say, human design or astrology, which you can get really deep into, right? Like there's
you
so
could go down the rabbit hole.
Woo, all the layers and layers and the gates and the channels and the planets and the trines and the this and the that. And Body of Nine is like, this is your body model. How do you use your eyes? What center of your body do you lead from? And that informs how you communicate with other people. It impacts your general energy in a space. Nines, I'm a natural, again, I'm a nine. We don't like to use force at all. And we have an inherent understanding of unity and that all people are equal. Not every other natural number has that. So not every other natural number has that. Yes. So I believe that we pick our body coming in alignment with what our mission is, right? So natural number three, for example, they are all about joy in the world. They have these big, vibrant, huge smiles with secondary smile lines, and they lead from their collarbone, and they are so focused. I'm like, that's got to be a natural number three. Chef Omari, I always say his name wrong, but he's the chocolate guy that makes these like statues of, I'm like, he's got to be a three. There's no way he's not, because three's eyes are so able to hone in on the littlest details. And when I went out and I learned how to activate the other numbers, what was wild is I actually got to feel the change in my own body. My eyes would change and I would be able to see things differently because I was activating the power posture of the different natural numbers.
Oh, wow.
So it's fascinating. And again, it starts to really break down. There's no such thing as this being different. It's just we all have our own body. And there are certain models of bodies across culture that if we just know the other person's model of body, we can immediately connect with them in a different and deeper instantaneous level. I could talk about it for hours.
How did you find it?
So I was on my own recovery journey from codependency and overcoming trauma and abuse that I had endured when I was younger and in my 20s. And I happened to go to like a self-development empowering event with Lisa Limata and Kayla Jetta of the Rise Leadership Circle. And I just was networking. It was my first time networking. I was terrified. And I met a woman named Jess Verrill. And Jess was writing, Jess is a publisher, House of Indigo Publishing, and she was working on a multi-authored book on parenting. And for some reason, I had the loudest call in the world to get in this book, which was really weird because I'm not a parent. I've lost children, and I have had bonus children or stepchildren, whatever you want to call them, but I don't have any biological children of my own at this time. So I was like, why do I want to be on this book about parenting? But I joined the book project, and that's where I met Susan. And Susan is the one who's been studying the body of, and she and her husband, Martin, call it Body of Nine. It is so important to know that a rose by any other name would smell as sweet. They have attached it to numbers and they call it natural number, but we could call it literally anything in the world. The core knowledge is that your body holds your own wisdom and inherent gifts, your spiritual superpowers, your natural abilities. And because you don't match your parents, that's one of the most fascinating things. Unless your family was bigger than 10 people, that's when you would start repeating the numbers, right? Because you've got 9 to go through. So parents, they have not yet found parents that match natural numbers that have had children together. So we've got 2 different parents, 2 different numbers, and then all the kids coming out are different numbers, and the parents are applying their lens of how they see the world. I have clients come in all the time. They're like, Yeah, my dad always made sure to tell me that I had to make eye contact or it was disrespectful. Well, dad's probably a 1 through a 4.
Yes.
Because I know a mom who's a 6 and she does not care. Her kids are all connectors, 1 through 4. She's a 6. She doesn't care. So she needs her kids to actually come over and tell her, hey, mom, look at me because I need your attention right now. And they have a code for it. So that mom isn't teaching you got to have eye contact all the time. So yeah, it's a major shortcut. And I was identified as a part of that book. And at first I was like, this is weird. I don't understand what, huh? And then after 3 months of being identified and knowing that I lead from my shoulder blades, I started to notice, oh, I do stand with my back. I love being hugged from behind. Oh, I'm really fluid when I dance through my shoulders. And I started to feel more empowered in my body because I just knew my center of leadership and my activation posture.
Love it.
And so cascaded into me unlocking my spiritual gifts, understanding I hold these massive spiritual containers for people, understanding I genuinely see the unity and the love in everyone and everything. I think we're all God. And I've never understood, why do other people not get that? Well, there's only actually a couple other natural numbers that see things naturally that way.
Gotcha.
So it's a celebration of diversity.
Sounds like your what is that thing called? Numerology, life path.
Yes. A lot of people, that's the first question they ask me is this my life path number? No, but the numerology does have some overlap because 9 is the number of completion. 1 is the beginning, right? And there is some in body of 9, like the numbers were chosen for a reason having to do with the numerology, but it's not the same as life path. You may have a completely different life path number than your natural number, which is your body's blueprint. And then, yeah, like life path is more of that cosmic design. It's more of that mission work, right?
Yeah, because
I love blueprints.
It's a 9.
Yeah.
So know this, humanitarian and all this type of stuff. Yeah.
Yeah. So that's really interesting because where there is that numerological overlap, we can see how the body governs and then how the spiritual purpose or the mission governs differently. Yes. And why did you pick the body you have, right? How is your body uniquely equipped for your mission?
That's what I want to know.
Well, hey,
I picked it. I think I would want it to be, a little smaller.
Well, there are answers out there. And I feel, again, when I learned my natural number initially, I was like, I don't really get this. It was because, I'd heard of Enneagram and like the personality test, but there was no test for this. They're like having me look in the camera and they had me wiggle my shoulders and they got me pretty quick. And then they started to describe 9 to me. And I'm like, have you been spying on me? And they're like, no, we've just interviewed another 1,000 people like you that have the same natural number. And these are the overlapping experiences that we've discovered and studied that all 9s have. I'm like, whoa, blown away. I felt like
felt like you were in the Twilight Zone.
Yeah, that is exactly what I was going for. Because I discovered human design by that point, and of course astrology and a lot of these other ones, but this is like so much more fast track.
Well, you don't have to study. It seems like it's streamlined.
It's so streamlined.
Because human design, oh my God, like I said, I know a little bit about it and I know what mine is and I kind of have some ideas and stuff like that, but it's like, oh my God, you could go all in. Like
you could go all in.
For me, I don't have any colored centers, so that actually is kind of good for me. So I don't have to worry about any of that. But then you got the gates and the other numbers on the side.
And I'm like staring at it going, huh? Whereas if you just attend, I'm a practicing partner of Body of 9 and I'm learning how to identify people. It is the hardest thing I've ever done in my life. And natural number 9s pick up things very easily. Never in my life had I ever been challenged the way that I was here, but I'm looking at people's bodies and their eyes in a totally new way. And I'm like, how does Susan see all this shit? And Martin's always being like, she's been doing this for 20 years. She's pushed on 8,000 people. Like, it's okay.
It's okay. Give yourself grace.
But just in one workshop learning, I took a quick workshop with them where I just learned the basics of 1 through 9. You know, what do they look like? How do they make their eye contact? How do they show up in the world? And that alone, that paired with learning my most intimate family's numbers, the relationships healed so much in a matter of weeks.
Oh, that's amazing.
Weeks, because my sister's a natural number 8. Natural number 8s root through the earth. They're so grounded. They are in their bodies. They feel everything in their bodies. Very acute eye contact when they do make it. They're observing. Their eye contact can kind of look a little sharp. And they need stability and consistency more than anybody else. And they will extremely, extremely experience disappointment if you say you're going to do something and you don't. Everyone else, you say you're going to do something and you don't, they're like, oh, that's obnoxious. But 8s, they might abandon you if you if you say you're going to do something and you don't. And after learning, she was an 8 and learning the basics of 8, I went to her and I said, I am so sorry for all of the times that I've energetically been prepared to show up for you, but then I didn't have the physical follow through. And so it looked like I was abandoning you, or it looked like I was not keeping my word. And I'm really sorry. And I'm going to do better to only tell you I can do things if I can do them, and I can definitely do them.
Yeah. So they feel.
And she was like, thank you so much. Yeah. She felt seen, she felt heard. And I've been able to stick to that because I know she needs me to be really consistent. And she also needs me to give her time to make her own decisions, which is 8s take longer than anybody else usually to come to really hard decisions. Okay. Yeah. So 101 right there. And I was just able to instantly connect with her in that way.
That is so neat. So now were you able to see what your parents' number was?
So what's really interesting, a lot of us will marry we'll marry our parents' natural numbers. We'll end up with one of them. And my father passed away a couple years ago, and we've been trying to kind of like look at old photos and do our best guess, but you really need to be able to see the dynamic movement, because in photos, a lot of us are posing, we're wearing makeup, we're, done up, whatever. But my relationships thus far have almost exclusively been with natural number 1s. And we're pretty sure my mom is a 5. One of the things that can impact being identified is obviously if you're wearing makeup when you show up to the call, or because that changes how your eyes look. But also trauma, plastic surgery, things like that can impact because we can collapse around our numbers. I think I was collapsed around my 9 for a really long time. So 9s are very misunderstood because we're out here trying to make all the positive impact while using no force. And so people think we're being passive or we don't care. When we pay attention, our faces are actually very blank, and our eyes look glossy and like we're gone, but we're actually more there. Like all of these things. So anyway, we think my mom's a 5. We need to get Susan and Martin or me better trained to be able to push on her a little bit more, because she's had so many experiences and she's had some surgical stuff that has changed her body shape. So
I like the way you did that.
Yeah. And we're pretty sure, because her current husband is a natural number 1, the chances are my dad was also a natural number 1. So
I could see that.
And that really led me into my wife is natural number 1. So knowing that, we're able to take a full step back and repair our relationship from a different angle, because we were likely acting out parent dynamics before we were aware of this.
Yeah. Oh, wow.
So now we're able to talk about that and unpack it and get to the healthy side of our natural numbers. My other partner is a natural number 2. Totally different energy. They lead from the ribs. We call them the ribbles around here. They lead from the center of the bottom of the ribs, like below the heart. And they have these big sparkly eyes and these cute little cheeks. Like they have these cute apple cheeks when they smile. And they are so able to meet with someone in intensity right then and there with eye contact. They're ready. And they are mirrors. They're able to mirror the energy of anyone they're with. So that's very different than 1, the throat, which is all about vulnerability, and it's all about opening up to the depth of your truth.
Yeah.
And vulnerability. Like, you see the slight differences. And 9s are just holding space for you to be the fullness of who you are, knowing you're unified with God. Like, this is magical stuff.
It is.
Threes are bringing the joy. Fours bring the depth of emotions. Fives bring the framework to the world and a connection to source. Sixes bring leadership and dynamic energy of what's alive in the moment. Sevens are our visionaries and they see all the possibilities. Eights hold the really calm, physical, grounded space with dignity for everyone. And our nines are holding down the fort. So
that's powerful.
Yeah. And when you know everyone's number and you can bring everyone together in a corporation or a family, knowing that, think of the work you can do together.
I was going to say that sounds like powerful work. I mean, because I haven't heard of it before. And so it's really intriguing to me, and it sounds like, just like you said, more streamlined and simple than astrology that takes you, people will look at me and they're like, well, do you know astrology? I'm like, no, I know my sun sign. I know my moon sign. I know my rising sign. I now know my Venus, but that's really about it.
That's where I'm at too. And for some people, it's an awesome special interest. And I love working with practitioners who specialize deeply in these things because they can teach us so much. And sometimes it's just nice to get to know someone right away and know how to communicate with them without having to unpack a whole chart.
Yes. What do they say now? That part.
Yes.
Because I tell you, I thought about it one time. I was like, maybe I'll study astrology, and I start looking at that stuff and my eyes started crossing. And I was like, no, you know what? It's like I'm a writer and people say, oh, well, I had to write it and I edited it. And I said, you know what? I am a writer. I'm not an editor. I'm not a formatter. I'm not a cover designer. Not any of that shit. I write the story. That is what I do. I said, so I am, truly one of these people that have learned that I'm going to stay in my lane.
Yes.
And I'm going to let these other people go in their lane and do what they do. And if I need them, then I can reach out to them, for their area of genius.
Yes.
A work in mine.
I love that. And that is, we are not meant to go it alone.
No.
We're not meant to go it alone. This legacy that I was talking about earlier of individualism has got to go. We are meant to work in community.
Yes. And what I've noticed lately is that a lot of people are trying to create communities, because I've been in a bunch of different like Zoom rooms with people that, are having virtual teas and happy hours, and I call mine the power hour, different things that we're doing. And that's been a lot of fun. And I didn't think I would like it because, to be honest, I am an introvert, really.
Yeah.
But I was like, you know what? I need to do this. And so I've done a few different ones. I have one, she was reaching out to me. She's like, well, are you going to join? Because, it's $39 a month and this and that. And I was like, well, that's not what I'm going to do right now. But I appreciate it. And it may come a time when I will do it. But I've been in a lot of different rooms and I noticed that people are just like creating community. And I think that's great because we need it.
We do.
We need it. It's like we crave it, especially after this pandemic.
Ooh, yeah, seriously. And it's taught us the importance of community. And I hope that is a spark that, in the scheme of things, as awful as the past several years have been, that we're really, really able to unite in now. And without it, I wouldn't have probably met Susan and Martin in the Body of Nine community. I wouldn't have gotten into my spiritual work because I would not have been pushed out of my comfort zone at the agency, right? So I hope we can take the gifts that are offered to us, mourn the losses, grieve the losses, feel it, but still move forward in the fullness of who we are.
I have a friend that used to say, she used to call it the gifts in the garbage. And I was like, yes.
We describe it. That.
Exactly. It's like, take the gifts and run with them because, it did bring some gifts, especially when we start shifting our perspective. For me, it brought sickness so that I could step out of the spiritual closet and start doing this work that I know that I was put here to do.
Yes.
It was like, all kinds of things. I ended up with long COVID. which has been really horrible.
Yes. Oh.
I thought I was having early dementia because my short-term memory was like, and over this last, let's see, what was that, September? So what? Almost a year now. I was dealing with that, and healing from it, and sending energy to myself, and also receiving it from other people. And that's another thing too that I wanted to just share. Now for me, I listened to the what are we talking about? The legacy of individualism. And so for me, I was always this person that, I just wouldn't reach out to people, and so I learned that a friend of mine actually told me one day, we were talking, and I've never met her in person. She's another amazing online person that I met. We've never met in person, but we've been friends for, I don't know, 5-6 years. And she said one day we were talking, and she said, you know what? You got to let somebody help you. And I was like, she's right. She's right. Yeah. And so I did. I started, allowing other people to, work in my energy, because I was working in my own energy and sending my own self-healing and doing my own Reiki on myself, and, all these other things, that these courses and classes and stuff that we're certified in, 50,011 things of them.
Yeah. Yep. Feel that.
So I said, okay. And so I started doing that, and I started, seeing the difference and receiving. And then I realized, I thought about it. I said, it's just like a massage therapist. You can't do your own massages.
It's very, very true.
You
might be able to massage your feet, your other hand, maybe your shoulder, but you're very limited on how far you can go.
Exactly. Yeah. And it's like, okay. And I was resonating with this, what you were talking about, how we really have to get out of this, because to me, that was a part of it. It's like, okay, I'm good. I don't need, anybody else, I'm good. I'm all right, and, just being able to step into this place where, we are, forming communities and being a part of communities and actually opening up. Because what I notice is a lot of people are so closed and shut down, especially after this pandemic.
Yeah. And I think it's
so much isolation
and not understanding people and not seeing them for who they are. But I call it the mythical number 0 in Body of 9, right? Like this idea that we're all the same, that we're all one size fits all, that everyone can come back to this like neat sum 0. No, we're all different.
Yes.
And we need to celebrate those differences.
Yes.
And come together
love on each other because of them.
Yes. And come together in community.
Yes. Can we do that?
I believe we can.
I was going to say, do you feel like we can do that in our lifetime?
I want to say yes. I'm going to have faith that yes, it's possible in our lifetime. I think that it's going to take radical things like bringing Body of 9 to the forefront, where we can celebrate people's superpowers and differences in different ways. I think it's going to take more diversity and inclusion educators coming out who have done their own work on their own niche, non-privilege, that can leverage whatever bits they have or have connections with people that have leveraged their privilege to start getting in more places and speaking. We're not going to get there with silence. We're only going to get there with more vocal acceptance and celebration of each other's differences.
I feel like that's a part of my mission for interviewing spiritual entrepreneurs, because I feel like, we need platforms. There's a few, because I love Next Level Soul. I love that. And I love, what's that girl? I was watching her yesterday, Deja Blue. I love her podcast, and a few of the other ones. But I feel like this is a part of my mission to help to get spiritual entrepreneurs out here, because a lot of them, they're afraid to get out there because, a lot of us are afraid of judgment and all these other things that come. But I feel like, that is something that, I've been called to do. And I also love it too.
Yes. And that is, the more we can embrace the joy with what we're doing, and when we are able to unlock our blueprint, when we're able to step into the fullness of our gifts, we can stop buying into this screwed up capitalistic system of one size fits all and start reinventing ourselves, our ways of moving through life, and we can start healing out loud and showing other people it's possible to break away from that too. That's really what I'm doing in my mission.
I was going to say, I'm so excited about that, because when I was listening to you say that, you know what I heard? Michael Jackson, Heal the World.
Mm-hmm.
That's what I heard. I was
Yeah.
like, we could just heal the world. And I don't know about you, but I listen to his Earth song quite regular. Like at least once a week I listen to it.
That's a great song.
Because it was
Really
just, it was so deep.
Yeah.
And you could feel his heart. You'd feel him. It's like, oh my God, because oh my God, I could talk about him all day. Because I feel like he was just so full of love, and he was misunderstood, and I feel like his mission was to heal the world.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah.
There's many of us out here trying to do it that are misunderstood because we're not able to be seen in the fullness of who we are. And,
Yes.
Just like you were speaking to with the individualism, that came from trauma, that came from fear, that came from being oppressed. It did not come from being seen in your authentic self.
Yes.
And being welcomed into a community to celebrate your differences. If that was the baseline, if that's what all our kids get, this next generation, we could heal the world while we're still alive. We just need to prepare the leaders coming into the world now to embrace the fullness of who they are from the get-go.
Yes.
I think that's going to be the turning point.
Absolutely. And I agree wholeheartedly with you. So now one more thing I want to ask you. If there was anything in the world that you could change, what would it be?
Anything in the world that I could change, what would that be? I mean, I think it would be judgment. If I could change and remove one thing, it would be judgment, and I would replace it with curiosity. Because if we can approach everything with curiosity, it changes the whole game.
Yes.
When I'm curious now about what someone's natural number is, I'm really paying attention to their smile and their eyes and their body language, and I'm really getting curious about them so that I can meet them exactly who they are and how they are, instead of judging them for how they're showing up in the room.
So on a superficial level, what would you say my natural number was?
So I'm not supposed to, because I'm not fully trained, make guesses. But what I do notice right away with you is that you do seem to match my energy in the room, right? I feel like when I get excited, you get excited. And when I come down, you come down a little bit. So I see that reflective quality in you. You do have some real cute cheeks and a great smile. So, and your mission in the world seems to be connecting people. So my initial impression is that I believe you could be a connection number. But that is all I will say right now. Because what can happen is if we guess somebody's natural number without being sure, and they go and they start looking into that and they start seeing themselves in that framework, and that's not who they are, it creates more dissonance. Yeah. When we tell someone their natural number, it should feel like a homecoming. It should be like, thank God they finally know who I am and how to see me for who I am. Not it's really
like this. It should be like this. Oh,
thank goodness. And it might take, they always, sleeping on it is good. Let it sink in, because you'll have activated it. If they get your natural number and they're like, we're pretty sure you're this, and you activate it in your body and you sleep on it, you tend to wake up the next morning feeling, I'm a little more in alignment. Versus if we were to tell someone the wrong number, and put that out there and they activate that, they might start to feel even more foreign in their body because they haven't mastered their own natural state. It's like we're really unpacking the nurture, right? The nurture masks our nature. So what we're doing is we're peeling back the nurture and we're seeing the nature of the body underneath. And when we see that, we start to step out more vibrantly and authentically. So I don't want to mistell you and lead you astray, but I can absolutely help you or anyone else figure it out with the right tools.
I was going to say, I wanted the people to see, how that could work.
Yes.
That was what I wanted to hear. I was like, that was perfect. Perfect. I can relate to that too, because when I first figured out my human design, the time of my birth I thought was a different time than it actually was.
Yep.
And so when I did it at first, I thought I was born at 11:30 a.m. I'm born on the 1st of November. My mother told me that I was born just after midnight because she said that she held her legs closed because she didn't want me born on Halloween.
Well, and that changes the perspective of things with regards to human design and astrology, but it does not change your human design. Yeah, or it does not change your natural number.
I thought, whoa, because I thought I was a projector.
That's a huge difference.
Yes. And then when I found out, well, I didn't really even align with being a projector either, because I was trying to figure, I was like, I don't know about this, you know. And then I was like, well, maybe that's just not for me. And then when I found out the real time and I did my chart and it came up reflector and I started looking at it, I was like, you know what, I kind of do align with that, because I do notice that, you know, I need downtime. I have to have it. I need alone time where it's just fucking me.
Yes.
You know, and I noticed that, and I've always been that way.
Right.
You know, so I was like, okay, I can see, you know, some aspects and stuff like that. But anyway, any last words that you want to say? And then if you have any programs or anything that you're doing that you want to share, or any, you know, anything that you are, you know, building or anything, just share that. And also share with the people where they can connect with you the best, you know, because some people like Facebook, some people like Instagram, some people like LinkedIn, you know, whatever.
Oh yeah, there's a billion things out there. I mean, my final words would be that I believe in you and your authenticity. And I believe that the most important thing you can do to heal the world is to work on stepping into your authenticity, because like cells in a body, every single cell counts when it comes to the health of the whole being. So yes. And where you can connect with me, the easiest way is to go to livinglunas.com. So that's the word living, like, I don't know, young living Luna, like the moon, with an S at the end, because we're living Lunas and we have a big, bold mission. Or Safrianna.com, just my first name.com. And the best place to connect with me is actually over in Discord, or just send me an email at coach@safrianna.com, because Facebook is a bunch of cold calls these days, and so is LinkedIn. So I really, until I've had a face-to-face connection or we've spoken via email or Discord, I kind of leave them on unread as much as possible. So yes, I'd love to connect with you. And if you are looking for a gift for yourself to really play this year, I am hosting a retreat in Sedona for the 12/12 portal in the last new moon of 2023 with my beloved friend and fellow natural number 9, Mary Gooden. So you can just guess that is going to be this beautiful spiritually held space. We have natural number 2 coming in to cook for us, plant-based meals. All you got to do is get there, and then we are going to shower you with love and gifts and art supplies, because we're going to be in the energy of inner child healing without a curriculum.
That is so good.
Yes.
So good.
So that is where I want everybody to come join me there. So far, the crew is a bunch of like starseeds and spiritualists and artists and writers and just awesome people. And I also have a spiritual community for anyone. It is open. It is meant to be diverse. It is not one religion. It is spiritual self-expression and sacred self-mastery. I call it the Sacred Moon Circle because it's just an easy name. We meet on new moon, full moon, and a manifest your month call, as well as the 8 holidays of the wheel of the year. So we celebrate all the seasons together and the transitions throughout. We really go with the rhythm, and you just get to show up authentically in that program and journal or meditate or do art or whatever you need to do, as I lead channeled meditations and light language and whatever sparks in the energy that night. So it's a great time.
I love it. I love it. I love it. You know, this stuff geeks me out and I love it.
Yes. And it's just cool for people to come together and be celebrated for who they are and what they do.
Yeah.
So thank you.
We need love.
We do.
You know,
all of us.
Yeah. Every single one of us, we need love. And I tell people, I'm like, if you don't feel like you need love, what do you need? I said,
Good
because you know what my thing is? Love is the principal thing.
Yes. Love is all source. Love is magic. Love is unity.
Yes. Yes. So I'll have all of her details in the show notes as well as her links, how you can connect with her. I believe she has her Discord community as well as website and all that stuff in there. So you'll be able to click on those. There'll be clickable links. And I'm so super excited just to be here with Safrianna, because this has been so amazing. I definitely want to stay connected, and we might have to do a part 2.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
So
thank you so much.
I want to thank everybody for joining us here. Thank you for joining Straight Out of Savannah with my guest, Safrianna Lughna. This has been such an amazing show. She is such a powerful, powerful spiritual entrepreneur. And so with that being said, if you are wanting to join me and be interviewed on Straight Out of Savannah, you are a spiritual entrepreneur changing the planet, come and join me on Straight Out of Savannah. And I'm just super, super grateful for you watching and listening to the show. And I would love it if you would make sure that you share, that you like, share, and subscribe to it if you're watching it on YouTube. And also if you're watching it on Spotify or wherever you get your podcasts, because this podcast is available on Amazon Music, iHeartRadio, Spotify, Apple, Google, Radio Now, Radio Breaker, Listen Now, anywhere that you listen to your podcast. So again, thank you so much for joining us on Straight Out of Savannah, and I hope that the rest of your day is magical. Bye now.
I know you've been blown away with the amazing value here today. Now go out and inspire the planet. And be sure to send us a message when you're ready to come talk about it on Straight Out of Savannah, Talking with Tammi.